بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهر إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها قد أفلح من زكاها وقد خاب من دساها كذبت ثمود بطغواها إذ انبعث أشقاها فقال لهم رسول الله ناقة الله وسقياها فكذبوه فعقروها فدمدم عليهم ربهم بذنبهم فسواها ولا يخاف عقباها.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. به نستعين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكري وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد، وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين، أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we approach the end of the blessed month of Dhul Qa'dah, as today, Saturday is the 22nd of Dhul Qa'dah, and Tuesday will be the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah, I want to give some advice from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam, especially so we can capitalize on the blessings of this great month and blessed month of Dhul Qa'dah. In this blessed month, and particularly on the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah, which will be Tuesday, it is a day which is highly recommended to engage in ibadah and in dua. It is the day which is called Dahw al-Ardh. So inshallah, I want to explain the meaning of the Dahw al-Ardh, and then also give some of the a'mal that are recommended on this day. And this is in preparation that we may maximize the benefits and blessings of the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah, and inshallah perhaps the rest of the blessed month of Dhul Qa'dah. In two verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He makes reference, direct reference to this idea of Dahw al-Ardh. The first is in the ayat that we recited in the beginning, and that is from Surah An-Nazi'at, particularly verse 30 of Surah An-Nazi'at, but we recite it from verse 27 to 30 of Nazi'at. And the second place that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reference the Dahw al-Ardh, which means simply means the spreading of the earth, is in Surah Ash-Shams. So chapter 91 of the Quran, verse 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by the earth, wal-ardi wa ma tahaha. So tahaha and dahaha, so dahw and tahu are synonyms in some sense. But if we go back to that first set of verses that we're referring to in Surah Nazi'at, from verse 27 to verse 30, wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is engaged in dialogue in some sense with those who disbelieved in the resurrection. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wanted the Prophet to pose this question to those individuals that are they more difficult to create or bring back from the dead, the resurrection, or was the heavens more difficult to create? And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He posed that question, أَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمَّ السَّمَاءُ بَنَاهَا, that are you more difficult in creation, this body, or is this celestial sphere the heavens? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only actually speaks about the heavens, or the atmosphere, or the stratosphere that is above us. Is this more difficult, or ourselves? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created it, He fashioned it, and He raised the ceiling, as it says, رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا. So He raised the atmosphere and He proportioned it. So every atmosphere, every layer, every stratosphere is proportioned. What part contains oxygen and what part contains other elements, if we go into the science of it. And likewise, every planet has its own atmosphere. So is that more difficult, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, or is the resurrection, that He created us from the beginning, and yes, we perhaps pass away, and for Him to bring us back from the dead in order for the Day of Judgment to occur? So that was a question that was posed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He draws the attention of those who the Prophet is speaking to, and our own attention as well, to the creation of this earth. Not simply just the heavens, but the earth itself, and the workings of the earth, night and day. So He says that He has darkened its night, the night of, again, the sky. أَغْطَشَ لَيْلَهَا. And so He's associating darkness or night with regards to the sama, with the heavens or the atmosphere. وَأَخْرَجَ ضُحَاهَا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He brought forth the brightness from that. وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. And thereafter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He brought forth the earth, or He spread the earth. So the meaning of this dahaha, or tahaha, as we read in Surah Ash-Shams, means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He spread the earth and He made it conducive for living and for life. So that's the meaning of dahaha. So on the day, the 25th of the Qa'dah, where we recognize the Dahw al-Ardh, that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He began the earth from that particular point. And this is something that Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi hafizahullah, he speaks about in one of his hadith, one of his narrations when he's talking to his companions. So he explains that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wanted to create the earth, لَمَّا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ أَن يَخْلُقَ الْأَرْض. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to create the earth, أَمَرَ الرِّيَاحَ الْأَرْبَعَ فَضَرَبَّنَا مَتْنَ الْمَاءِ حَتَّى صَارَ مَوْجًا. So what Imam Baqir says, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commanded the four winds. So this is four types of wind, perhaps, or wind coming from four different directions. So He commanded the four winds, and they struck the water. And as they struck over the water, it created a wave. And then the wave turned into a foam. So that it begin to froth and turn into kind of a foam. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, according to this narration of Imam Baqir alayhi hafizahullah, he said that He gathered all of this foam fi mawdi' al-bayt. So in one place. And that place is the place of the house, al-bayt. And this bayt, which is being referred to, is the Kaaba. So this is where the foam it gathered. And then, according to the narration of Imam Baqir alayhi hafizahullah, ja'alahu jabalan min zabad. So that froth and that foam begin to form as kind of a mountain, begin to collect there, begin to build up or mount up. ثم دحى الأرض, according to Imam Baqir. And at that point, ثم دحى الأرض من تحته. And at that point, the earth begin to spread forth from beneath that place, from beneath that mountain or that pile of froth and foam. And this is where Imam Baqir alayhi hafizahullah, he says that this is what is meant and intended by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He stated in the Quran, إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ لَلَّذِي بِبَكَّةَ مُبَارَكًا. So the first house that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the first house that was created for mankind was created at Mecca, at this sacred place. And the part of that sacredness, as we are understanding now from understanding Dahw al-Ardh, is that this is the place where the landmass or earth began to spread out and to spread forth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in Surah Al-Imran, so chapter 3 of the Quran, verse 96, this is the ayat that we just read, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that the first house that was created for mankind is at Mecca, which in this verse this is Bekka, which means Mecca, Bekka Mubarakan, Hudan lil Alameen, that it is a place of guidance for mankind. So the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala initiated the creation of this earth, a place which is conducive for mankind to live on. It is the first place, as Imam Baqir, he explains, أول بقعة خلقت من الأرض, al-Kaaba. So the earth in itself is considered the Kaaba. Yes, we have the Kaaba that is built, and that is a symbol of the beginning and the first place or where landmass begin to spread out from that particular point. And so this leads us to another understanding or meaning of Dahw al-Ardh, or what the significance of this particular day is, the 25th of the Qa'dah, that it is recognizing, one, the beginning of the landmass where it is being established from the Kaaba, from Mecca, the place where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the center of the earth in terms of landmass. So that means as well that this is the original prime meridian. So if you want to really understand time from the beginning of time, this is the original point, which inshallah we can discuss that in another lecture later, that the significance of this particular spot on earth. So that's with regards to the meaning of Dahw al-Ardh. With regards to the a'mal of Dahw al-Ardh, there are about four or five a'mal, which we find in the riwayat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, which is recommended on this particular day. The first a'mal, the first action that we find in the riwayat, or we find quite often, is to fast. So it is one of those days that is highly recommended to fast on the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah. And we find this in the riwayat of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, where he states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down His rahmah, His mercy, لِخَمْسَ لِيَالٍ بَقِينَ مِنْ ذِي الْقَعْدَةِ. He says, for the last 5 days of the blessed month of Dhul Qa'dah. So it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy comes down on in that particular time period. So whoever fasts during that time period, then it is as if they have fasted for 70 years. So you fast for 5 days, the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah until the end of Dhul Qa'dah. Inshallah, is 30 days, and it will be 5 days. So you fast till the end, and it would be as if you have fasted for 70 years. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, as well, he states that the first revealing or singing down of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rahmah was on that day, on the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah. And so therefore, whoever fasts on the 25th day of Dhul Qa'dah. So Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam is particularly talking about the 25th day. The hadith of Rasulullah is expressing a fasting for from the 25th until the end of Dhul Qa'dah. But in any case, if we are able to fast at least the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah, then we should not miss that day. So that will be on Tuesday. So Imam Ali, he says, whoever fasts that day and whoever stands in that night, qama tilka al-layla. So on the 25th day, you fast, and then as you break your fast, you spend that night an ibadah. You spend that night in making dua. So that ibadah that you spend in that night, as Imam Ali says, he says, it is like مئة سنة صوم نهارها وقيام ليلها. So you will get the reward of fasting for 100 years if you fast on the 25th of Dhul Qa'dah. And if you stay up that night and make ibadah, it will be as if you get the reward for staying up for 100 nights or 100 years, that you've stayed up for one night for each night for 100 years. This is the again, the value of this particular night. It is a great night. وَأَيُّمَا, and this is what Imam Ali, he says, وَأَيُّمَا جَمَاعَةٍ اجْتَمَعَتْ ذَلِكَ الْيَوْمِ فِي ذِكْرِ رَبِّهِمْ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ لَمْ يَتَفَرَّقُوا حَتَّى يُعْطُوا سُؤَلَهُمْ. And then Imam Ali, alayhi he says that on that night, people should gather. Yes, each person makes their individual ibadah, their fast, stays up and engages in dua and in prayer. And I'll give one of the salats that we should make as well, the form of it. But also gather in a group on that night and make dua and supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a perfect moment, especially in this time that we still kind of in the time of COVID. I know some people have lifted restrictions, but a perfect time to gather as a family, to gather as friends, to make dua and to supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that night. As Imam Ali he says that any group that gathers on that night and they pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then he says they will not part from one another. لَمْ يَتَفَرَّقُوا حَتَّى يُعْتُوا سُؤْلَهُم. They will not part from one another except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have answered their dua. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day, He will descend upon them. He will bless and grace each person بِأَلْفِ rahmah, with 1,000 upon 1,000 times of rahmah. And that rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give to each person. And of course, as we know, that rahmah within the du'as and supplications, and also within many of the hadith, means forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It also means blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that blessing or that forgiveness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give to that servant, as Imam Ali says, يَضَعُ مِنْهَا تِسْعَ وَتِسْعِينَ فِي حَلْقِ الذَّاكِرِينَ. So, وَالصَّائِمِينَ. So in order to capitalize on that reward of 1,000 upon 1,000, or 1,000 times 1,000 million blessings, he says that 99 of it will be for those individuals who have remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning they engaged in supplication and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was-sa'imin, and they fasted on that day. So that means that if we were not fortunate to remember and to engage in ibadah, so we may have one, you could say, reward of rahmah, simply because of the greatness of this day, which it comes out in some of the riwayat of Ahl Bayt. But if we fast and we pray and we make dua in that night, then we will have 99% of that rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He promised to give. So as we have stated, and Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi, he also emphasizes that part of the greatness of that night, of this day, the 25th of the Qa'dah, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed the Kaaba, the Bayt al-Haram, which is that landmass that came up, and from that all other landmass spread forth. It is a day, as Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi also says, that and this is where we can understand that rahmah is also forgiveness, that the person who fasts on that day, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have given or forgiven. And in terms of kafara, it is if that person paid kafara for 70 years. So if they had that kafara, and this doesn't mean that if you actually have to pay kafara for missing fast and things like that, that you simply fast this day and you don't have to do it. No, that's an obligation that needs to be done. But this is speaking about the reward, the spiritual reward of that day. And so a person who fasts on that day, it is as if they had paid 70 years of kafara, that this has been lifted up. So even in paying the kafara, and quite often some think, oh, well, the kafara is a punishment. Yes, it is an atonement, as this is considered. It is an atonement that a person has done something and they have to pay the kafara. But also at the same time, when the person pays that atonement, they pay that kafara, that in that it is reward. Why? Because that kafara, although it's atonement for missing something, or sometimes intentionally missing something or doing something that was incorrect, but simply by obeying that command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by paying that kafara, a person is also rewarded for that. So this is where Imam Musa Kadhim alayhi his statement is coming, that a person who makes fast on the 25th of the Qa'dah, it is as if he has paid kafara for 70 years. As this is the first day in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Imam Musa Kadhim says, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought down the rahmah from the heavens upon Adam. And so this is after Adam alayhi salam was sent to this earth, after he left from the Garden of Eden, he came to this earth, and then so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the 25th of the Qa'dah gave his mercy and blessing to and forgave Adam alayhi salam. So the second type of a'mal that we engage in, of course that was fasting, is in ghusl. As mentioned in several ayat, as we saw as well, to do ibadah as well as ghusl. And remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when it comes to the ibadah part of it, one of the salats that is recommended, and this is the third thing, so fast, make your ghusl on that night, and the third thing is to make a salat, and this is a 2-rakat salat. And in this 2-rakat salat, you pray you pray after you make your takbir, you recite Surah al-Hamd, Surah al-Fatiha once, and then you recite Surah Ash-Shams, that is chapter 91 of the Quran, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا. Of course, verse 6 of Surah Ash-Shams, as we mentioned, refers to that Dahw al-Ardh, وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. So you recite Surah Ash-Shams 5 times, and this is for each rakat. So first rakat and second rakat, Surah Al-Fatiha, and 5 times Surah Ash-Shams. And once you finish that salat, then you recite La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. And after one recites this, that there's no power and there's no majesty or glory, no strength except with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most exalted, the high, then there's a dua that is recited afterwards, and inshallah we'll provide that dua for everyone. And that is, we state, Ya muqil al-atharat aqilni atharati. So, oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh the one who again removes the stumbling blocks. And of course we all have those stumbling blocks in our lives, those moments which we are challenged, those moments which we face a lot of difficulties. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove those difficulties and set them aside. Ya mujib da'awat ajib da'wati. Oh, the one who answers the prayers and supplications. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to answer our prayers and supplications on that night, the 25th of the Qa'dah. And of course it is one of those nights which we see in the riwayat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer our supplications and our du'as. And inshallah we will make du'a for everyone, particularly make du'a for those who are suffering among the mu'minin and mu'minat, and du'a for those individuals who are suffering from oppression. Ya sami' al-aswat, isma' sawti. And we call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who hears the voices and hears the calls, hears the cries of everyone. And we ask him to hear our voice in particular and to answer our du'as and supplications. وَرَحَمْنِي وَتَجَاوَزْ عَنْ سَيِّئَاتِي. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us mercy and to overlook our shortcomings, overlook our sins, those things which we have done wrong. وَمَا عِنْدِي يَا ذَا الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. And overlook anything that is that I have fallen short of, O mighty, majestic, O noble Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the dua that we recite after we make that 2 rakat salat. In the first, we recite Surah Al-Ham, and then 5 times Surah Ash-Shams. And in the second rakat, likewise, al-Fatiha, and then 5 times Surah Ash-Shams. The 5th a'mal is one of the du'as that we recite. And this is a much longer dua. And it's a dua that begins, Allahumma dahiyal Ka'aba wa faliq al-hab. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we call upon you who has spread the earth or spread the Kaaba, and you have again brought forth everything. You have split the atom or split the seeds. In this dua we recite and we acknowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this one of the great nights, one of the great days, and it is a wadi'ah, it is a trust in the hands of the believers. It is a day that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has also promised to answer the du'as of the believers. We mention all of these things in this particular du'a. And finally, one of the things that is also a 5th thing that we can do on this day or the night of the 25th of the Qa'dah is to make ziyarah to Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's interesting that the dua is particularly for Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida. And perhaps this is because when we read the history and the seerah of Imam Rida alayhi salatu wasalam, on several occasions the Imam, he brings up this idea and the concept of Dahw al-Ardh, that the earth, it spread forth from Mecca, from the place of the Kaaba, or this is actually the Kaaba. So the Kaaba earth came forth and spread out throughout the entire earth. That he mentions this several times in his discussions and debates in the Baytul Hikmah, in the House of Wisdom. As we know that in that House of Wisdom, they were folks coming from different parts of the world to come to discuss about knowledge, theology, science, medicine. And so we find some of the discussions from Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi wasallam regarding Dahw al-Ardh. In one of the hadith, which is authentic, at least from the chain of narrators, he mentions that on the 25th of the Qa'dah, which is the day of the Dahw al-Ardh, he says, this is the day, Wulida fihi Isa wa Ibrahim. It is the day in which Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam was born. It was also the day in which Nabi Isa alayhi salam was born, on the 25th of the Qa'dah. Although the hadith, at least from my research, it is correct from the point of view of chain of narrators, and there are other hadith which also correct from the point of view of the chain of narrators that pinpoint the birth of Ibrahim on a Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam on a different day, and a few others that point to a different day for Nabi Isa. But in any case, it is a special day, the 25th of the Qa'dah, and we should not overlook this day and shortchange ourselves from the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised on this day. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He continues to guide us from the teachings and the wisdom of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, and may He grant us all of our needs and answer all of our prayers and du'as on the 25th of the Qa'dah and on every day. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشف مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لواء بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
زيارة الإمام علي بن موسى الرضا عليه السلام. بسم الله وبالله وعلى ملة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله، وأن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله، وأنه سيد الأولين والآخرين، وأنه سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك ونبيك وسيد خلقك أجمعين، صلاة لا يقوى على إحصائها غيرك. اللهم صل على أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عبدك وأخي رسولك، الذي انتجبته بعلمك وجعلته هاديا لمن شئت من خلقك، والدليل على من بعثته برسالاتك، وديان الدين بعدلك وفصل قضائك بين خلقك، والمهيمن على ذلك كله. والسلام عليه ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على فاطمة بنت نبيك وزوجة وليك وأم الصبطين الحسن والحسين، سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، الطهرة الطاهرة المطهرة، التقية النقية، الرضية الزكية، سيدة نساء أهل الجنة أجمعين، صلاة لا يقوى على إحصائها غيرك. اللهم صل على الحسن والحسين صبطي نبيك وسيدي شباب أهل الجنة، القائمين في خلقك والدليلين على من بعثت برسالاتك، ودياني الدين بعدلك وفصلي قضائك بين خلقك. اللهم صل على علي بن الحسين عبدك القائم في خلقك، والدليل على من بعثت برسالاتك، وديان الدين بعدلك وفصل قضائك بين خلقك، سيد العابدين. اللهم صل على محمد بن علي عبدك وخليفتك في أرضك، باقر علم النبيين. اللهم صل على جعفر بن محمد الصادق عبدك وولي دينك، وحجتك على خلقك أجمعين الصادق البار. اللهم صل على موسى بن جعفر عبدك الصالح ولسانك في خلقك الناطق بحكمك والحجة على بريتك. اللهم صل على علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى عبدك وولي دينك القائم بعدلك والداعي إلى دينك ودين آبائه الصادقين، صلاة لا يقوى على إحصائها غيرك. اللهم صل على محمد بن علي عبدك ووليك القائم بأمرك والداعي إلى سبيلك. اللهم صل على علي بن محمد عبدك وولي دينك. اللهم صل على الحسن بن علي العامل بأمرك القائم في خلقك وحجتك المؤدي عن نبيك وشاهدك على خلقك المخصوص بكرامتك الداعي إلى طاعتك وطاعة رسولك صلواتك عليهم أجمعين. اللهم صل على حجتك ووليك القائم في خلقك صلاة تامة نامية باقية تعجل بها فرجا وتنصره بها وتجعلنا معه في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بحبهم وأوالي وليهم وأعادي عدوهم فارزقني بهم خير الدنيا والآخرة واصرف عني بهم شر الدنيا والآخرة وأهوال يوم القيامة. السلام عليك يا ولي الله، السلام عليك يا حجة الله، السلام عليك يا نور الله في ظلمات الأرض، السلام عليك يا عمود الدين، السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إسماعيل ذبيح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد رسول الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين علي ولي الله ووصي رسول رب العالمين، السلام عليك يا وارث فاطمة الزهراء، السلام عليك يا وارث الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. السلام عليك يا وارث علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا وارث محمد بن علي باقر علم الأولين والآخرين. السلام عليك يا وارث جعفر بن محمد الصادق البار. السلام عليك يا وارث موسى بن جعفر. السلام عليك أيها الصديق الشهيد. السلام عليك أيها الوصي البار التقي. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وعبدت الله حتى أتاك اليقين. السلام عليك يا أبا الحسن ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم إليك صمدت من أرضي وقطعت البلاد رجاء رحمتك، فلا تخيبني ولا تردني بغير قضاء حاجتي، وارحم تقلبي على قبر ابن أخي رسولك صلواتك عليه وآله. بأبي أنت وأمي يا مولاي أتيتك زائرا وافدا عائدا مما جنيت على نفسي واحتطبت على ظهري، فكن لي شافعا إلى الله يوم فقري وفاقتي، فلك عند الله مقام محمود وأنت عنده